can be certain that CNN told Tapper not to go too hard because they still want access to Netanyahu. They don't want to lose Netanyahu's access to like Fox News, which is certainly going to cover this worse. But, you know, this is the reality of access journalism. You have to play nicely with the politicians if you want them to continue to show up on your show.
Thank you so much for joining us. A central part of the ICC's charges against you and Gallant is, quote, starvation.
Gallant, sorry, not against Gallant. They're both G's.
Warfare. Now, I know that Israel repeatedly claims that enough aid is getting in and there is not a purposeful starvation.
Man, you just can't get past, like, the fact that, like, news broadcasters in America have to do this entire song and dance of, like, now, you know, I understand, you know, I understand that Israel has said that enough aid is getting in, even, you know, if it might be true that it's not, but, like, gotta love that.
Otherwise are misinformed, are lying. Is Israel going to send a delegation to The Hague to present any evidence to defend itself?
I think these charges are exactly as President Biden called them. They're outrageous.
God, Biden, you fucking cuck, dude.
Rogue prosecutor that has put false charges and created false symmetries that are both dangerous and false. And
let's be really clear. These certainly aren't. These certainly, the one thing he's correct about. These are false symmetries. You know, you have leaders of Hamas who are, you know, who were responsible for October 7th, the death of, what was it, 1,200 people? And then you have Benjamin Netanyahu and his administration responsible for the death of tens of thousands. You know, he's not wrong. There is a difference between these two groups. There is.
The first false symmetry is he equates the democratically elected leaders of Israel with the terrorist tyrants of Hamas. That's like saying that, well, I'm issuing, you know, arrest warrants for FDR and Churchill, but also for Hitler, or I'm issuing.
Well, that would be a really salient argument if only there wasn't, I don't know, like a war going on between like, you know, two warring nation states, as opposed to the thing in which his country is engaged in, which is genocide of a people justified by the actions of an extremist group operating in the area. Like, let's be really clear. There is no Palestinian army versus the Israeli army. It is the Israeli army barreling down on civilians of Palestine. That there is no like, oh, there's a war between these two you know, factions. No, again, we've seen so little like actual fighting and more just the leveling of civilian infrastructure.
Arrest warrants for George Bush, George W. Bush, but also for bin Laden. That's absurd.
Well, that would also be a salient argument if people didn't already think that there should be warrants to arrest George Bush Jr., considering, you know, the whole lying an entire country into a war, causing hundreds of thousands of deaths of civilians in the country of Iraq and probably in Afghanistan as well. So, like, what am I supposed to say? Like, even his defense is moronic, idiotic. You would think somebody this high up in state office of an entire country would have a better argument than, oh, let me compare, our conflict to that of World War II, not even close to the same kinds of conflicts. What if I compare myself to George W. Bush, a wildly unpopular president here in the United States, the country he is trying to appeal to, and the country he needs to appeal to the most? Why don't I just compare myself to one of the most unpopular presidents in modern day history, a president who lied us in the war, Not unlike, Netanyahu dragging his country, dragging the people of his country into a conflict for which they have no interest in. Or I shouldn't say that because there was a lot of interest in this entire conflict in the offset. As time has gone on, it has become clear to the people of Israel that Benjamin Netanyahu has no interest in protecting the lives of Israelis, has no interest in protecting the hostages or getting them back. It's just, he would like to stay in power, and the only way to stay in power is to continue the war effort.
Absurd. Secondly, the charges are completely false. Let's take this charge of starvation. We've put in 500,000 tons of
Hello there.
trucks of,
the answer is yes.
medicine,
when
for this,
people are
population.
interested,
We've
by all
taken
means,
20,000
raise
trucks.
your
We've paved roads to put those trucks in.
by all means, if you're interested in having a little chat, I'm open to pretty much anybody. Just let me know what you want to talk about. It's not going to be like, I'm not going to end whatever segment I'm on, obviously, but yeah, if I'm up for talking with pretty much anybody. I like talking politics with people, so yeah, I'm
We've opened border crossings that Hamas closed
thanks for the
down.
follow. I appreciate
I've
that.
had airdrops that are facilitated.
I don't
sea
need-
route supplies. I mean, the whole thing is absurd. You should know this.
Sorry, my phone goes off when that happens, and I'm kind of. I
in
feel like I should
Gaza
turn that
has
notification
dropped
off on
by
my phone.
80%. The markets don't lie. They talk about 23, I think.
I wasn't paying
of
attention. Why are we
starvation.
talking about markets?
We put in 500,000 tons of trucks of food and medicine for this population. We've taken 20,000 trucks. We've paved roads to put those trucks in. We've opened border crossings that Hamas closed down. I've had.
Is any of that adequate? And like this all flies in the face of like aid workers and aid groups telling everybody else, oh, hey, by the way, this isn't, we're not able to get aid to these people. Like, at the end of the day, like this is just, and the disappointing thing is Tapper is sitting here with his concerned ass face. Ask the guy, like, goddamn, how much, like, ask the guy a fucking question. Like, push back a little bit.
Airdrops that are facilitated, sea route supplies. I mean,
thank you.
Is absurd.
Wait, is that Tony?
You
Oh my
this.
God!
I mean,
hi, Tony.
The prices of
dude,
food
my hair's like so
in
much
Gaza
longer now.
Has dropped by
since the last time you saw
80%.
me.
The markets don't lie. They talk about 23, I think, or 30 cases of malnutrition in a population of 2 million. Okay, the United States in 2022 had 20,000 deaths of malnutrition. That's 3 times more than in Gaza. This is completely.
Well, first of all, the idea that like, oh, people in the U.S. died of malnutrition because, I don't know, like capitalism squeezed them to the point that they weren't able to afford groceries and basic necessities. That's one thing, but that's a feature of capitalism. What the ICC is arguing is not that like, oh, just because of the system that you live in, some people just are not able to get food as adequately as others. That, while awful, and as a socialist I oppose, Benjamin Netanyahu has no problem with that. That's capitalism, baby. Some people eat, some people don't. I don't know what to tell you. What they're arguing is that this war, this conflict, this genocide is actively causing malnutrition and starving out the civilian population. Like, the whole purpose of this conflict is to starve out these people. Not they incidentally did because they couldn't pay rent, because they couldn't buy food. And I'm doing well, Tony. How are you? I'm doing quite well, I would say. We got a rig. We got like a fun rig now. I'm off the laptop now, which means also now I have the entire desk to put my feet up and stuff, which is nice.
False. It's the kind of slander that has been leveled at the Jewish people for ages, and it's renewed now against the Jewish state. It was false then, it's false now. But one thing, this prosecutor, this rogue prosecutor, didn't even bother to come here.
I do.
He said
people,
he'd come
look,
here, check the facts.
Let me say this as a blanket statement. I don't believe in, so aside from using offensive and abusive language, people of the opposite political persuasion from me are welcome in my chat as long as they do not disrupt and be weird. it is a bit of a vibe check on my end. Like if you're being a bit much and a bit weird, I am gonna ban you. Or I'm gonna time you out. But otherwise, if you if you would like to participate in good faith, I am welcome to hear arguments. It is as kind of a lot of streams. It's up to my discretion how much if you keep spamming the same damn thing, you're not gonna. I'm going to eventually time you out. But I personally choose to believe that people are not born with their political positions. That everybody is movable, or at least like you should be movable given a certain set of facts and given a certain set of arguments. Therefore, I do not want to preclude my chat from people who share the opposite politics of mine. I would love it if you do have opposite politics of mine to come in here and be open to hearing a separate argument, to hearing, at least hearing in good faith, listening in good faith to the things I have to say, and not just NPC dialogue treating me with like the million talking points I always hear. But again, that's just kind of, I have to trust that people are coming here for a different perspective, or just to I don't know, get some light on other people's perspectives. And until you prove that wrong to me, then I have no problem with that. This is a blanket statement. Some streamers only want people from their side in the chat. Have been banned for this, so that's why I asked beforehand. No, that's fine. I understand that. Don't get me wrong. Like, people want, I think, a decent amount of civility in their chats, and I do. It's just, like I said, as long as you're keeping it civil, and you're at least open to opposing arguments, then I'm fine with that. I'm alright. Lots of changes in the past 6 months, but that's life. Show me a pic of the setup. If I still have a number, I'll send it to you. Do I have a mod? I don't know. I don't have a mod yet. I am the sole mod. I have the largest crown. Heavy is the crown that I wear as sole moderator on this channel. I should definitely get one though at some point. But yeah, I know the feeling. 6 months.
He didn't check the facts. He just went out and demonized the Jewish state, and he's taking the ICC down the route of the General Assembly that passes infinite resolutions, flat earth resolutions against Israel, or the Human Rights Council that used to have a reputation that is completely blown because half...
I mean, look, if we're going to do this whole, like, again, I really do. I just wish U.S. media would have the fucking balls to actually push back on some of this. Like, he's just standing there. Like, I get it, where they're like, oh, well, we don't want to interrupt, and we don't. Fuck that, dude. Like, no, it's like, Tapper should have cut in already and been like, wait. Are you right now willing to, are you willing to source any information to the contrary to the multiple aid organizations who have come out saying that they are not able to get aid? The multiple sources that we have of aid workers being bombed and shot? Like, this is like, how is an American, if I'm an American citizen watching the regular daytime news, how am I supposed to see this as anything other than U.S. media is bringing this guy on to set the record straight with no pushback? I guess Israel's doing I guess they're the most moral army in history. I guess it's just
half the resolutions are against
right.
Israel, not against Iran, not against North Korea.
Say something, man. Come on.
It's the same thing. It's outrageous.
He just says, nuh-uh.
And dangerous because it endangers every democracy.
We should note, though, it's not just the ICC expressing concerns about the lack of humanitarian aid getting into Gaza. President Biden and his administration and their officials, not to mention European allies of Israel and their officials, they've all been making this case for months that Israel is not letting enough aid in. So when President Biden expresses concern about you not letting enough aid in, is he wrong?
Well, no, we have the same concerns. We were trying to get
yes, actually, I do, Tony. Here, I'll tell you. If you have the same number, I should be able to text you.
That's what was happening. They were taking it for themselves. or extorting the population. We were letting the aid in from the start. And look, this was my directive from day one. The day one thing was we have to we comport with international law. We comport with the rules of war. We have to get those trucks in. We're getting hundreds of trucks every day in. And that's been an aspect of our conduct of war, because we try to get civilians out of harm's way. We've done things that
this is no different than any script. To a degree, this is that was such a softball question of well, the Biden administration also thinks there's no aggression out of Tapper's side on this. This is literally I'm gonna throw you some easy balls that you can right down the center so you can that bad boy and it's no different, as a seasoned professional wrestling fan, I can tell you this is such a, you say a thing, then I'm gonna ask you this question, you're gonna do that, then I'm gonna ask I don't know if he got the questions ahead of time, but I'm fairly certain, or at the very least, you can be certain that CNN told Tapper not to go too hard because they still want access to Netanyahu. They don't want to lose Netanyahu's access to Fox News, which is certainly going to cover this worse. But, this is the reality of access journalism. You have to play nicely with the politicians if you want them to continue to show up on your show.
He's saying that. It's General Petraeus saying that. The head of the urban warfare at West Point, Colonel John Spencer, says it. Israel's gone out of its way both in humanitarian aid and getting civilians out of harm's way with millions of text messages, millions of phone calls, and leaflets that we've been dropping, giving up the element of surprise. Israel is given here a bum rap. I think it's dangerous because basically it's the first democracy that is being taken to the dock when it is doing exactly what democracy should be doing in an exemplary way.
Also, what is this whole appeal to democracy? Democracies are capable of committing war crimes. What the fuck is this? This whole democracy bull. It's such a bullshit line for you to turn your fucking brain off and go yep, well, Israel is a democracy, so it can't possibly commit any We have committed war crimes in this country. We invaded Iraq in 2001. We have done things that are. It's just. It's insane to me to think that any this is supposed to just make any normal American just shut their brain off of oh well, they're a democracy, so I guess it's no, democracies can break laws. Democracies can absolutely do horrible things. It's this weird neoliberal line where they think where people seem to think that oh no, well, and unless you're running an authoritarian, autocratic dictatorship, you can't really, you just can't really commit these sorts of crimes. It's maddening. It's maddening. You have to throw away so much logic when dealing with the Israel question. All logic needs to be thrown out the window. Do we like ethno-states? No, except for Israel. Do we? Are we okay with war crimes? No, but Israel's a democracy, so it's okay. And it's just ay.
I think it will endanger all other democracies. Israel may be first. You're next. Britain is next. Others are next too. The second thing that is dangerous about this, Jake, is I think this fans the fires of anti-Semitism that are raging on American campuses and throughout Western capitals. They're pouring gas. He just poured gasoline on it, this rogue prosecutor, Khan. Because, people initially will think this is serious. They think the ICC, this is a serious thing. It's not. Well, it's a travesty of justice, and it's a pack of lies.
Let me ask you, because what Hamas did on October 7th, just to make this clear, what Hamas did is abhorrent, as is the refusal to return the hostages.
It's you know what it feels like? It feels like it feels like such a toxic relationship, such a gaslighty toxic relationship, and not even a complex one that you would easily recognize almost immediately. That every time we talk about any of the actions of Israel, what do? But October 7th, and then we have to then there has to be the entire thing of okay, before we tell you that the thing you're doing bad, we have to all recognize that October 7th happened and that wasn't good, and we're not, and it's just it's we treat this government with such kid gloves. It is absolutely fucking disgraceful. Honestly, coming from the most powerful country in the world, it is fucking disgraceful.
Oh, abhorrent. But whether or not it was Israel's intent, tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians, including countless children, have been killed and maimed by the IDF in your war against Hamas. Is there anything you and the IDF could have done any differently to avoid all the loss of innocent lives in Gaza?
Like, what do you mean? Is there anything, like, you can ask this exact same question without being a fucking pussy. Just ask him. Tens of thousands of women and children and men, I mean men, women, and children, civilians, all the same, have all been killed in your effort to go after Hamas. Do you feel any remorse for the countless lives you have stacked up to deliver us an undetermined amount of Hamas affiliated fighters to the grave? Like, you've killed tens of thousands of civilians to garner how many lives of Hamas members? We've never gotten an answer on that. There is no consistent counting of how many people how many Hamas militants specifically Israel has been able to neutralize. We just haven't. And when we do look into numbers, regular males 18 and up with no proof of identification or no proof of affiliation, I should say, are counted in those numbers. They count anybody within like fighting age as basically Hamas, which is not at all. Like, not at all consistent with like, there's just no standard for it.
First of all, every civilian casualty is
like, I know that they have published numbers, but when those numbers have been looked into, they're like, it's very obvious that they're counting just men. I'll see if I can find something, but go ahead and find me what you can find.
Shooting at them if they try to leave the battle zones, but many have left. Thankfully, I can say that. Now, the ratio, because of our actions, the ratio of civilians to combatants killed is the lowest in the history of urban warfare, and certainly dense urban warfare like this. It's about 1 to 1. There are about 14,000 casualties, 14 to 15,000 terrorists killed, and an equal amount of civilians that were unfortunately killed because that.
And keep in mind, I'm all like, this is also one of those cases where Israel's giving a lot of these numbers. I want third-party not whistleblowers, but third-party organizations to identify these numbers. But let's take a look. Israel, Hamas civilian ratio. Let's take a look. Let's see. There we go. Washington Times has killed 13,000 Hamas members. Let's see. The civilian versus combatant death ratio is less than 2 to 1. This is not going to let me. Oh, will you let me read this article? No, you won't. Oh, wait, no, maybe. Let's see. Israel's war against Hamas posts lower civilian to combatant, right? So, no, I don't. Let's see. Israel's powerful military machine is carried out. Okay, yeah. So this is, again, numbers by Israel. Like, can I get let's see, Washington Stan, approximately 1 to 1. Substack says militants. UN, there we go. Okay, let's take a look. JNS, more than 14,000 terrorist combatants have died since October 7th, approximately 16,000 civilians, according to new Israeli estimate released on Monday. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm not saying, and if I did say that they haven't released numbers, I was incorrect. They have released numbers. The issue with the released numbers is that they don't coincide with UN or third-party numbers. Like, we are supposed to take the ratio of civilian to combatant numbers from the currently, like, combating force, which has every incentive to keep those numbers as low as possible in terms of civilian numbers. So every single time, like, let's see, hopefully we can read some of this. Top global health officials say that number of women and children killed in Gaza has not been revised down after new details published by the United Nations. Before and after. Let's take a look. Like, oh my God, Jesus God. Wait, is this like a live? Holy shit. That's fucking cool. That's like cool that this is a thing we can do. Technology, am I right? Let's see. Previously, reported the total number of people killed in Gaza, which reached 35,000 this month, along with the breakdown of numbers, women and children among the dead. Citing the government media office in, as of May 6, day 213, reported that at least 14,500 children had been killed in Gaza, along with 9,500 women. But starting 2 days later, May 8th, OCHA appeared to change the source of this data, citing information from the Ministry of Health in Gaza, rather than the government media office, on how many were among 24,686 people killed who had been fully identified as of April 3rd. Keep in mind also the Gaza Health Ministry is actually identifying people, whereas it doesn't, like, that's the most reliable source we have for who's identifying people killed. Separate category is also included for the elderly, representing 1,924. Numbers have not dramatically shifted. The overall tally remains unchanged, 35,000. Subset 24,000 fatalities. It was not like Kiev. The OCHA did not appear publicly. Also, I can't wait to see. It'll be really interesting to see. Like after all this, obviously, but when the arrest warrants, like, because they're applying to get arrest warrants, the big question will be when we start to see some of the data that they're using to justify those warrants. If they get them, that's like a whole nother story. Because that means that the evidence is such that the ICC court was like, oh, okay, this is fairly objective. You can move forward. Let's see. Half a year into the war. Okay. Well, this is April, but we'll kind of take it. This should be from AP. Meanwhile, Hamas continues to fire rockets into Israel from Gaza. Total deaths. Let's see. Oh, is this okay? Let's see. Palestinians killed in Gaza, 33,000. Children killed, 13,000. People killed in Israel. Like, okay. West Bank, people killed in Lebanon. Cool. Civilians killed in Gaza. Gaza's health ministry doesn't distinguish between civilians and combatants in its counts, but it says women and children have made up about 2/3 of those killed. Civilians and foreigners killed in Israel, October 7th, 708. And we've seen the aid trucks. We've seen like however many aid workers get killed. Let's see. First responders killed in Israel, 62. Civilians killed on October 7th, Israel along North Border Shore, 9. Like, these numbers aren't close either, which also doesn't, like, numbers in Israel, double digits. Health workers killed in Gaza, 400, almost 500. Journalists killed in Gaza, at least 95. Aid workers killed in Gaza, 224. Like, these are just, let's see, soldiers, militants. Okay, militants killed by Israel in Gaza, more than 13,000, according to Israeli military, which again, they have every reason to flub those numbers. Israeli soldier killed in the Gaza ground offensive, 200. 250 Israeli soldiers killed on October 7th, 314. That's 314 out of the October 7th group, out of the 1,200. Israeli soldiers killed along Israel's north, 11. Militants killed in Lebanon. Okay, that's Hezbollah. Destruction, humanitarian situation. Obviously, these numbers are awful. Palestinians injured, 75,000. Like, the displacement, 1.7 million. Like, these are, honestly, I'm probably going to, like, hold on to this page just as, like, a quick reference. I usually, like, I have a little quick reference option. I'm just going to hold on to this because this is going to get updated. But these are just raw numbers. And as of yet, we still don't really have, like, and to be clear, we are not going to see clear numbers until all of this is over. And even then, it's going to take multiple years to dig people out, identify them, and everything else. So we're not going to get an answer to all of this for many years. The big question is, how far will this go until we start to see some of that, right? Like, if the ICC, like, let's say the ICC files their arrest warrants. The war is halted tomorrow on May the 22nd. We are not going to get answers probably until like May of 2026, 27, until we start getting clear, concise, fully vetted numbers. And right now, and that's not going to happen. So what? Are we going to, is this going to be going on until the end of 2024, January 2025? They're still fighting. And then what? We're not getting answers until 2028 and, so on and so forth. Do you get the picture? But this keeps going on. And as this keeps going on, more and more people get added to the body counts. So, but wouldn't Hamas have every reason to lie about their numbers too? Well, Hamas certainly would, but Hamas is not the Gaza Health Ministry. And keep in mind also, there is kind of a threshold in terms of, what's the word? How many people can die, right? And the Gaza Health Ministry, as much as people will say, I've heard Hamas was the government there, so the Gaza Health Ministry is related, da-da-da-da. Keep in mind, the Gaza Health Ministry, we've been able to verify those numbers. They kept records of people, and we have a guest. But yeah, the Gaza Health Ministry has been keeping records on people. That's also the other element to their numbers that gives me more of a, that gives me more confidence in their numbers, is because they're actually verifying the people who are dying over there. Whereas Israel, they're not giving up they're giving us a number and they're telling us these are the numbers. And we don't have any way to track those or verify those numbers. Miso, hello, Miso, do you want to come here? Come here. I want to see if he'll come. Miso, come here. Come here, my boy. Okay, he's gonna. You can't see him. He's over here, but a cat has joined us.
That's what happens. But in other arenas, in Fallujah, with a handful of terrorists, 3,000, 4,000 compared to 35,000 in Gaza. Thankfully, I can say that. Now, the ratio, because of our actions, the ratio of civilians to combatants killed is the lowest in the history of urban.
And keep in mind, again, we don't actually know the ratio. We have an idea of where the ratio is, and we can verify some of that, but the actual ratio we're not going to know.
Warfare, and certainly dense urban warfare like this, it's about 1-to-1. There are about 14,000 casualties, 14 to 15,000 terrorists killed.
And keep in mind also, if we're talking about the incentive structures for Hamas versus
a handful of
versus
3,000, 4,000 compared to
versus Netanyahu.
The ratio was much bigger than that.
Hamas is a terror organization while I'm not going to say they don't have end goals, but they're a terror organization. Their end goals are so flagrantly devoid of modern politics and the day-to-day running of a nation state, compared to someone like Netanyahu, who is trying to stay in power in a current nation state in an official position. If Benjamin Netanyahu is out of power tomorrow, that creates a huge rift in Israeli politics and Israeli U.S. politics and relations. If Hamas decides, if somebody gets taken out by Hamas, if somebody in Hamas gets taken out, the next guy steps up and they move. The next day for them is kind of the same as the last. Whereas there's so much more change that can happen, meaning that there's so much more of a incentive to keep things keep the status quo on the Israeli side as opposed to the Hamas side.
So we've gone out of our way to stop it. And let me tell you, I think that the numbers are also inflated.
What's up, Drew? I love you too, bud.
The UN organization.
We got to link up one of these days.
Dominated by Hamas in Gaza is giving false information, as is Hamas itself.
And whenever X Defiant gets sorted out, we should play together. It looks like Black Ops 2 multiplayer again, from what I saw.
Now we can't say that. We don't know who they are.
Whatever the numbers
I mean, they are. There's
the lie circles.
Yeah.
Well, look, yes, one is too
people who like do the whole.
The reason we have
I've been to a few of the pro-Palestinian protests, and like, not I'm talking like there's like 98% are normal, pretty average Americans and activists. But you always got those people who I think see this sort of stuff and are just a little bit more militant, and that's going to happen. You never want to. And like, I understand you want to be empathetic and understand where that militancy comes from, because it comes from a place of, I think, deep hurt and emotional and emotional connection. Like, you got to figure that people who are a bit more, who are certainly more militant, are probably feeling the pain. They probably know people over there. There's a good chance they've lost somebody. So somebody who's militant, give them a hug. Give them a hug. Let them know that they're doing okay. But certainly the broader politics of militant, religious fundamentalist groups, I'm not a fan of. Same reason why I don't like Netanyahu. Like, it's just, it's just being consistent ideologically. But I understand where it comes from.
In casualties at all is because Hamas is preventing them from leaving. I'm happy to say that in the Rafah operation that we've conducted, 1 million people actually left. People said, well, there are 1 million people, 1.2 million in Gaza. Where are they going to go? They're going to be trapped. Well, 1,950,000 have already left, and there are very few civilian casualties because we're. And
understand, he's bragging right now about displacing.
This is our policy. It's
almost 1 million, like 1.2 million people.
We comport with the laws of war,
which is an element of genocide.
And it doesn't give any solace that they're also taking these killers of Hamas, these murderers, and putting them in the dock. As I said, yeah, Hitler's in the dock, but so is FDR, and so is Eisenhower. Absurd.
After 7 months of unity for your wartime government, there seems a lot of disagreement now about your plans for Gaza, or lack thereof, after a major military operation.
The dude's plan is just to move settlers in.
Wants a plan, or he says he's going to leave your government. Your defense minister, Yoav Gallant, says you don't have a plan. He's basically accusing you of trying to lay the groundwork for an occupation.
This dude's such a fucking monster, man.
In Gaza in the future. Are you denying that the plan is for an occupation of Gaza, or are you taking it off the table?
What do they mean, an occupation? They have been in control of Gaza for like the last 75 years. They haven't just started occupying it. They've always occupied it. They've been the ones in control of the water, of the gas, of the electricity, of everything else in that area. It has been described as an open air prison all of my life. It frustrates me when we pretend that that things only escalated since October 7th. Things that, like, the water was boiling for decades before the overflow.
No, I have a very clear plan. I think the first thing, the day after Hamas, Jake, is the day after Hamas. We have to get rid of Hamas, otherwise there's no future for Gaza.
Which,
no
again,
I've
said it before.
Tremendous victory for Hamas, but
what's
for
the old
Iran
saying?
that backs it and organizes
ideas are bulletproof. Like, you're not going to get rid of Hamas. You get rid of Hamas, and guess what? Hezbollah steps up, or some other extremist org pops up.
Battalions will defeat them.
We defeated the Taliban, I guess, or something, when we entered into the Middle East conflict, and then ISIS popped up. Like, it's just, you're never going to defeat this, and going about. The problem with Netanyahu and the Israeli approach to regional politics has always been that they are going to bully and push their way onto land, and not engaging in politics. Not to say that it's not, like, difficult, and certainly the region is rife with political strife, but when when outsiders carve up a land for somebody at the without involving the neighbors of this would-be country, there's going to be conflict.
But once Hamas is defeated, what we have to do is have
And once
sustained
Hamas is defeated, there will
demilitarization of
be
Gaza.
an opportunity
yes,
for a
on
new
this, I
group with a
think
new
the
name
only force that
to
can
pop up and do the
prevent
same thing.
resurgence of terrorism,
And
for
nothing will
the
change.
foreseeable future is Israel. At the same time,
The status quo preserved.
I want a civilian administration that is run by Gazans who are neither Hamas nor committed to our
So
destruction.
you're taking it off the table.
Well, geez, if only Jake, are you going to even say it? If only they didn't, if only they had worked with the Palestinian Authority instead of flagrantly ignoring their request, instead of disengaging from talks with them, and instead leaving the only option for the people of Gaza to be Hamas. If only they could have seen this coming. It's it's the old.
The third thing that we need to do is.
Was that MLK said?
No, I'm not. I'm putting it on.
When you make peaceful,
I'm saying you're taking off an
peaceful
Israeli occupation of
resolution
Gaza.
impossible,
Gaza,
you
you're
make
taking off the table an
violent
Israeli occupation.
revolution inevitable,
resettling-
or something.
If you mean resettling Gaza,
It's just like-
it was never in the cards, and I said so openly, and some of my constituents are not happy about it, but that's my position. The third thing that I would do is have a reconstruction of Gaza, if possible, done by the moderate Arab states and the international community. That's
Why not the Palestinian Authority?
demilitarization, civilian administration by local Gazans who are not
Like,
committed to
keep
Israel's
in mind,
destruction, and
Other Arab countries are
responsible
like, this
reconstruction.
isn't our
That, I think,
land.
is a realistic plan,
Like,
and I've said so.
We are
Look, if some
not.
people are
This is
not
this.
happy with it,
We are not
maybe
like
they
going
want
to govern a piece
put
of
in
your
the
land.
Palestinian,
It is within
that
your
still
borders.
teaches its
You
children to,
need to deal with that, which again, like, speaks to the arrogant nature of Netanyahu and like his administration. That their idea, that this idiot's idea, that their idea is we are going to have a plot of land that is going to be within our borders, held to the same like federal laws that contained within our borders, but we're going to let it be run by alternative states. Like, are they going to let Iran govern? Are they going to let Iran govern the Gaza Strip? No. And why would they? Why would Iran be interested in any of that? What the international community and what these standards should be is that Israel should have to run Gaza the same way they run the rest of the nation, with full rights, instead of being an apartheid regime, instead of having this like huge, fucking gorge in the quality of life, in the resources available and everything else between the northern part of the country and Gaza. Like, it's just, but they have no interest in doing that. Now, granted, I don't even really think this is the plan. The plan is going to be they want to resettle it. Obviously, he's pretending that that's not going to happen. But I'll be honest, I don't really believe him. Call me crazy, but yeah, it's just none of those countries are going to agree to run parts of your land. It's in your land. Either give it up, which they're not willing to do. And even if they did, it's like, all right, give it up and give it to the Palestinian people. We can make them a full nation state. But how many times has Israel said it? They oppose a two-state solution. So what are you supposed to do? They only support a one-state solution, but they are not willing to govern the Palestinian part of that state. They want the Arab nations to come in and govern it for them, even though none of them would agree to that. None of them would agree to govern under Israeli rule. So, for now, the people of Palestine just kind of have to sit there and have their houses be bombed, their families, generations taken out. He doesn't operate. No, they do not operate at the moment.
The more terrorists, the more Jews they kill, the more they pay. Supports terrorism. That's not my position. I want a different future for Israelis and Palestinians.
The Palestinian Authority used to, until for a long time, as far as I've read and listened to more well-read people than I on the issue, Palestinian Authority was the governing body in Gaza and in the region for a good while, until they were voted out by Hamas after there was just no forward momentum, no progress on relations with the rest of Israel.
in the Middle East, too.
Two more questions for you, sir, because I know your time is limited. Three people familiar with the ceasefire discussions that fell through earlier this month tell our reporter, Alex Marquardt, that Egyptian intelligence quietly changed the terms that Israel had already agreed to in order to get Hamas on board. Does this raise concerns for you about Egypt being involved moving forward?
Look, I think we have a goal, which is not only to defeat Hamas, but also to release the hostages. My government has been able to...
I swear they always have to do like the release the hostages meme.
Hostages so far, and we're committed to get the rest.
There's a really easy way to release the hostages. Just back the fuck out.
On a demand that is simple. They say, well, we can release the rest of the hostages, maybe. But in order to do that, you have to get out of Gaza,
sounds about
war,
cool,
and allow us basically to regroup and reconquer Gaza.
Cool, it sounds good.
About to commit the October 7th massacre.
Oh, and keep in mind, he's like saying conquer when what would actually happen is the civilians of Gaza would be allowed to return to their fucking homes.
This horror of beheadings and raping of women, beheading women after they rape them, the burning of babies, the slaughter of the innocent, the taking of hostages.
Do I even need to say that like a bunch of this was debunked? Certainly some of it, like I believe even in the ICC, they affirmed that there was mass rape going on during October 7th. But like, does anybody else remember all the like cooking babies in microwaves nonsense that was going around right after October 7th? And how much of that was just complete fucking hogwash? You know, like, oh yeah, like Hamas members like cut somebody's head off, then rape somebody. I don't know, maybe someone like stuck their dick in like the person's where their head was. It's just it's all like it's all such what's the word? Like it's all so indulgent in this violent rhetoric that's so over the top. I don't know how people believe any of this. Because it's so over the top and ridiculous. It's unbelievable. It's just, they lied at the beginning. They've been lying. They obviously don't give a shit about like lying about what happened on and after October 7th. But you know, people still, for whatever reason, U.S. media just shakes their head when they go, oh, yep, babies in the microwaves, yep,
we'll
totally happened.
Again and again and again.
Debunked,
so
but totally happened.
I won't agree to.
Can keep saying it.
I hope Egypt understands that we can't agree to something like that. That's not something that we can countenance, and neither can the people of Israel. By the way, the overwhelming majority of Israelis support this policy. And I can
also, I want to like
the other day.
I want like we can go back and look at the numbers of deaths in Israel since October 7th. I want you to just think about how low those numbers are when we hear stuff like, "Oh yeah, Hamas is firing rockets into Israel." How successful has that been? They have the Iron Dome.
We'll reject it.
They've suffered incredible minimal casualties on their end.
I don't remember the Knesset agreeing 106
so, I mean,
members out of 120 agreeing on anything.
But Mr. Prime Minister, you say that the majority of the American people are with you on this plan.
They're not.
A poll from the Israel Democracy Institute from this month showed a majority of Israelis, 56%, say getting the hostages back home should be a higher priority than military action in Rafah. So don't you just fundamentally disagree with the majority of the Israeli people?
Well, I've seen other numbers,
because
I take a different thing. I don't say this is more important than that is more important. I say both of them are important. And in fact, the military action
what a fucking coward
is that
won't even go there.
The way to get these hostages because
won't even fucking go there.
Pressure, basically, without squeezing them, Hamas is not going to give up anything. That's the reason they gave up the first.
They don't have anything to give up.
And that's the reason
they don't have land. Like, so again, this isn't a nation state. This isn't two nation states.
And, I intend to fulfill both of them.
Before you go, sir, we should note, well, we appreciate your talking to us. According to the independent Israeli media monitor, the Seventh Eye, you've done about 2 dozen interviews since October 7th, but all of them in English and all the outlets outside Israel. I don't want to begrudge that. I appreciate you doing an interview with us. But why are you not speaking with Israeli journalists the way you are with me?
Because there's protests in Israel.
That's the tendentious reporting of a lot of the Israeli media. So I can tell you what they're not telling you is I've done I don't know if it's 24 or 20 or 15 press conferences with Israeli media. They can ask anything they want, and they do. And I just met Israeli reporters the other day in Rafah, in fact, 3 days ago, and they asked me all the questions they want. So that's simply not true. I speak to them, and I speak to you, and I welcome the opportunity to tell the truth and dispel the lies in both mediums.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
No, it's when protesters set up new encampment in Drexel. No, hey, Drexel. I know a couple people that went there. Yeah, like there's been, yeah. Like, yeah, yeah. We're just, oh yeah, I don't speak to the Israeli media because I've talked to the Israeli people are behind me. They all agree with my plan. Meanwhile, thousands in the street. Hello. You've made it to the end of the video. Something that only the strongest and elite of YouTube viewers make it to. So, as a reward, I will bestow upon you some wisdom, some guidance. You should subscribe to this channel. You should do it like right now. It told you to do it earlier, but like you were so good, you blew past that, like a pro esports player. You blew past that first ask and made it all the way here to the boss. And now the door opened behind me. And I think something is going to come and get me unless you subscribe.